It's a Thursday night in Las Vegas. But Sin City locals Tom and wife Sharon are leaving the neon lights of the Strip to the tourists and sharing a romantic dinner at a quiet suburban restaurant before going to the movies.
Sharon's favorite thing in the entire world was to go to movies. She was a movie fanatic.
But on this date night, Sharon is said to be in the mood for something else.
She wanted to go home and have sex with Tom Randolph. And so he takes her home.
About there, we start opening the door up.
Tom acts out his version of that night's deadly events in this dramatic videotape shot by detectives themselves.
We're doing a walkthrough of the house, kind of a reenactment of what happened last Thursday.
Sharon's gone into the house ahead of him.
I start pulling in.
Tom parks the car and walks into the house.
Just coming on in the house. Then I turned the light on myself as we got in.
He sees something shocking at the end of a hallway leading to their bedroom.
I get right here and Sharon's laying in the floor, face down. And I stopped right about here, had the door. Said, Sharon! Sharon!
Then something stops Tom in his tracks as he's going to her aid.
I thought I just seen like a shadow or something over this way.
Tom goes to a closet where he keeps a 9mm handgun.
And then I just reached up just like that, grabbed it, stuck it in my pocket, came around just like that, and about that time he's right up on me. Just right up on me, and we actually touched right about here.
Tom says he assumes the man wearing a ski mask had broken into the house while he and Sharon were at dinner and shot her when she walked in and surprised him.
And he kind of banged into me about right here, and then he went over to about right here.
The intruder then reaches for a gun tucked in the belt of his pants.
He kind of rushed up on me a little bit, and that's when I just pushed him, boom, boom, boom!
Tom continues to fire his 9mm as the intruder flees down the hall leading back to the garage.
I don't know how many times I shot him, but I just kept right on going. Boom! Boom! Boom!
But Tom says he hears a noise from the garage and fears the intruder is still alive.
And I mean, I actually got close. Boom! Boom! And I don't know if I shot him once, I shot him twice. He wasn't moving.
Tom calls out to his wife Sharon again.
Sharon? Sharon! Sharon!
Tom says he wants to get to her, but is now afraid there may be another intruder hiding in their home. And he dramatically reenacts step by step for police how he carefully searched the house.
I started thinking there was somebody in the shower, like that.
His 9mm is in his hand and his fingers on the trigger.
I'm just kind of trying to see if anything else is going on. You know, like there's anybody around.
Finally satisfied there's not, Tom now approaches his wife lying in the nighttime shadows on the hallway floor.
And I think I turned this light on then. Turned that light on.
It's a horrifying sight.
She was laying here, and by then I could tell she was hurt really, really bad. I mean, the blood was just, then you could see thick blood. And I came back over and I went to call 911.
My wife's been shot, and there's a guy in my house, and I shot him. Has he...
Is he hurt too? Is he hurt too?
I hope she's dead.
Dispatch connects Tom to the emergency medical operator who tries to tell him how to help his wife.
Put her flat on her back. Oh, there's blood everywhere.
Sharon.
But with her life hanging in the balance, something is about to happen that will help change the entire course of the case.
My wife's been shot, and there's a guy in my house, and I shot him.
A couple returns home from date night only to be surprised by a masked gunman. Melissa McCarty has more of the dramatic show and tell the husband gave to detectives during the investigation.
Sharon Randolph lies motionless in a pool of blood, her life hanging in the balance.
Boom, boom, boom!
And her husband, Tom, has just killed the intruder who shot her at their suburban Las Vegas home.
Boom, boom!
Now, just hours later, Tom's reenacting the horror of it in this dramatic police video.
He wasn't moving.
But there are moments on the video and Tom's 911 call that make investigators wonder if there may be more to this crime than meets the eye.
There's a lot not making sense about this story.
Investigators think Tom seems unusually cold and callous. Like when he says he stumbled over Sharon lying in a darkened hallway and thought he tripped on shoes she'd left on the floor.
And I'll tell you what else, too. Ugh, it drives me crazy, and I'd love for her to do it right now. But she will leave 6 or 7 pair of shoes out. I don't know how many times I've hurt my back getting up in the middle of the night trying to be quiet because I don't sleep at nights. And all of a sudden it's... Sharon!
And investigators only grew more suspicious when Tom tells of finally coming to his wife's aid after shooting the intruder.
And I know the whole time I'm probably crying and yelling, Sharon, talk to me, something like that.
It occurs to them that Tom might not actually want Sharon to live when the emergency medical dispatcher is frantically trying to get him to do CPR.
The dispatcher has to ask him between 12 and 15 times to render aid to Sharon. Should I go do this? Should I go do that? Sir, you have to give your wife CPR.
Sir!
Investigators think Tom is stalling.
Put her flat on her back. Oh, there's blood everywhere.
I said, she's still not moving, but she's bleeding really, really bad. And he says, that's why you've got it. She's going to die if you don't do this now.
But now, Tom tells the dispatcher he's concerned that the intruder he shot may still be alive.
Should I try to find this gun or something so he don't shoot me if he's not dead? Huh? Be careful, but get his gun away from him. I'm going to put this thing down and get my gun.
Tom locates the intruder.
He's in the garage, I can see him, but I mean... Is he moving? No. Go get his gun. Go get his gun, quickly.
Tom complies.
He don't seem to be moving, and I got the gun. Okay, you got his gun away from him? Yeah.
Now the dispatcher asks Tom to go tend to his dying wife again.
So I got down like this. I laid the phone down something like that. I said, Sharon, I'm trying to get her to respond in some way.
But then he stops talking to the dispatcher.
Sir, can you hear me? Oh, God.
Tom sounds hysterical and non-functional.
Sir. Oh, God. Sir, come back to the phone. Oh.
Tom finally picks up the phone again to tell the dispatcher he can't move Sharon to give her CPR.
I can't get her to roll. Come and try again. We gotta try to do CPR. I need you to try.
And I says, wow, this is really freaking me out. I says, I don't think I can do this.
Then Tom can be heard screaming. He's finally turned his wife on her back and seen her bloody, mangled face for the first time. Tom gets back on the phone to tell the dispatcher he thinks Sharon's dead.
Oh. She don't have a pulse.
The dispatcher tells him how to press Sharon's chest to get her heart beating again.
And I started doing the chest compressions.
Sir, you gotta count as you're doing it.
So then I started 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, and I'm really just getting tired.
Investigators aren't buying it.
I mean, he was doing anything and everything he could to make sure Sharon was dead.
I reached across like this, took her pulse one more time, no pulse.
He was going to make sure that she was dead and gone before the cops got there.
You think she was breathing when he called 911? She was still alive?
I think there was a good chance she was probably still alive.
When police arrive, they find Sharon, 47, dead from a single gunshot wound to the head, inflicted with the intruder's gun. And the intruder is lying dead too, from 5 bullet wounds, one of them in his head, delivered by Tom's 9mm.
Boom, boom!
It doesn't take Detective Dean O'Kelly long to see red flags.
It was immediate for me at the crime scene.
Tom arouses more suspicion when he himself points out the evidence of a burglary to investigators.
Look, there's the jewelry, there's the gloves, there's the gun, there's the ski mask. I mean, what else do you want?
And one of his first questions is why Sharon's 52-year-old husband took so long to dial 911. More than 10 minutes after a neighbor had already reported hearing shots fired.
Boom, boom, boom.
Tom tries to explain.
And I dialed 911 and the phone didn't work. And I remember saying, what a time for a Vonage to go out.
Tom tells detectives he then finds Sharon's cell phone on a table.
Right here. I tried 911 again and it was busy.
Tom says he keeps redialing.
And that's when whoever said 911 and
911 emergency, Hernandez 8480.
A suspicious Detective O'Kelly also discovers evidence at the crime scene that tells a very different story than the one Tom reenacts on video.
So that was a big red flag for me.
Tom, you will recall, had claimed he encountered the intruder inside the house and was firing at him as he fled down the hallway towards the door to the garage.
I just kept right on going. Boom, boom, boom.
Detective O'Kelly says it just doesn't add up.
So when did the flags start to go up?
There was no blood in the hallway.
Nor are there any bullets or casings, as would be expected.
We're not missing shell casings, we're not missing bullets, but they were all in the garage.
Where was Mike Miller, in your opinion, truly shot?
Opening the garage door and entering the garage.
Which is where Detective O'Kelly believes Tom really first encountered the intruder. And it doesn't appear Tom killed him in self-defense like he claims.
That final shot was a coup de grace, a shot to the head to execute him.
Boom.
The plot further thickens with a shocking admission on Tom's 911 call.
I know him. He stripped me off. He tried to rip me off.
Tom Randolph has literally been playing the hero hubby.
Boom, boom.
Dramatically acting out in this police video how he says he fearlessly chased down and killed a masked intruder who just shot his wife Sharon dead in their suburban Las Vegas home.
I just kept right on going. Boom, boom, boom.
But right from the beginning, Detective Dean O'Kelly has Tom pegged as a villain, not a hero.
In my book, you had Thomas Randolph as a potential suspect 5 minutes after I walked in the door.
The forensic evidence at the crime scene directly contradicts Tom's story.
Sharon. Sharon.
And Detective O'Kelly suspects Tom may have masterminded the killings of both his wife and the intruder.
He set the whole thing up.
The pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place when the dead intruder is identified as Michael Miller. A 38-year-old handyman Tom had admitted was no stranger to him on his 911 call.
I know him. He stripped me off. He tried to rip me off.
Investigators learned Tom had befriended Miller several months earlier.
He takes him under his wing and starts having him around the house constantly.
Out of the kindness of his heart, he befriended what he called a bum.
Yeah.
Shooting more than just the breeze with him.
They're constantly shooting guns. They're constantly out doing target practice.
As investigators say, Tom's wife and others had grown suspicious of what else the pair might have been getting up to.
They're constantly having conversations over the telephone, meetings in like secret rooms where no one can hear what's going on. Everybody thought the relationship was very odd.
Including investigators.
In like a 6 or 8 week period, we have over 303 phone calls between the two of them.
Police suspect Tom may have hired Miller to murder Sharon and make it look like a burglary.
Boom, boom, boom.
And then kill his hitman to silence him.
Why did you broke into your house?
Because I was leaving the next day.
Tom admits to detectives that he'd given Miller $150 just hours before Sharon was shot dead.
Maybe even more than that over a couple of days. It got to be, he'd come over and borrow, $20, do a little bit of work.
Tom insists the money was just another one of many loans he'd made to Miller.
So you better not end up at the casino tonight because tomorrow if you come to my house early in the morning or tonight, I'm just not answering the phone, I'm not answering the door.
He ain't getting another penny from it.
But then investigators make an astounding discovery. Tom stands to make $360,000 out of his wife's death.
He had several life insurance policies out on her. I think we were able to uncover 4 total.
Now detectives think they've found a motive for Tom wanting Sharon dead. But prosecutors want more evidence before bringing a murder case against him. But it doesn't stop there. Detectives dig a little deeper and, to their own astonishment, discover something truly chilling. Sharon is not the first Mrs. Randolph to have met a tragic end.
He's been married 6 times, 4 of his wives are dead. You know, this isn't a coincidence.
And Tom had taken out large life insurance policies on all of them.
They were a way to generate money, and he did that for 30 years.
One of his wives, number 4, Frances, would suspiciously die in her hospital bed after undergoing successful heart surgery.
According to family members, everything's fine, she's doing great.
Until Tom tells her daughter he wants to be alone with Frances.
Thomas comes out sometime later and tells her that her mom is dead. And she has no idea how that could have happened.
And her family would never find out.
There's no autopsy, she's cremated. He then sends her remains in pill bottles to her family members.
I'm sorry, in
Pill bottles, like prescription pill bottles. He sends her ashes.
Investigators would also learn that a young Tom had allegedly tried to hire hitmen to murder 2 other wives, number 1, Catherine, and number 3, Gaina. But Tom's offers had been declined by the prospective hitmen, one of whom feared for his own life.
He said immediately, after I shoot her, you're going to kill me.
Just like police believe Tom killed Michael Miller after he'd killed Sharon.
It certainly corroborated a lot of what we already knew about what happened to Sharon.
But it's the violent and suspicious death of wife number 2, Becky, that would astound investigators.
He shows up and Becky has shot herself in a bed and is laying with the covers perfectly covered and 1 bullet hole to the head.
It's ruled a suicide, and Tom weeps all the way to the bank.
Thomas Randolph had 4 insurance policies on her that we were able to find, totaling over $500,000.
Then, almost 2 years later, yet another prospective hitman, Eric Tarantino, comes forward alleging Tom had approached him to kill wife number 2, Becky, telling cops they even discussed ways it could be done.
Car accident, putting a cloth of cyanide over her face, having her pass out, slamming her head against a full bathtub, making it look like she slipped and fell and drowned. I mean, you name it.
This time, Tom's suddenly on his way to jail.
was he then taken into custody?
He was taken into custody. He was charged with Becky's murder.
And while Tom's in custody awaiting trial, a jailhouse sting busts him trying to put a hit on Eric Tarantino, the man he tried to hire to kill wife number 2, Becky. Prosecutors say it was a vain attempt to prevent Tarantino from testifying.
Eric Tarantino goes in, tells the judge everything.
But the jury wasn't allowed to hear about the foiled hit on Tarantino, and Tom would be found not guilty of murdering Becky.
They were going after the death penalty or nothing, and the jury said, we don't have enough to go with death.
And Tom would also get off easy for allegedly plotting to kill Eric Tarantino, pleading guilty to a lesser charge of tampering with a witness.
And he goes to prison for a short period of time.
But now, after uncovering the deadly history of his first 6 marriages, investigators realize they're not dealing with your average, everyday killer.
I think he's a monster.
Serial killer as well?
Oh yeah, there's no doubt in my mind he's a serial killer.
Next, the courtroom is shocked at the sight of an almost unrecognizable Tom Randolph when he goes on trial for the murder of his 6th wife, Sharon, and the execution of the hitman who killed her.
I didn't kill anybody.
Investigators allege Tom Randolph is a serial killer who has managed to get away with murder after murder for 30 years.
We have 6 ex-wives, 4 hitmen hired to kill those wives, 2 unexplained, very mysterious deaths, and in each of those situations, he had life insurance policies totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars that he collected on these wives.
And Randolph's collected a lot more if you count the fortunes prosecutors say he bled from his wives while they were still alive.
How much money do you think he got away with?
Well, over his career as a wife killer, it's into several $million.
Now detectives and prosecutors want nothing more than to bring the alleged marry 'em then murder 'em monster to justice.
He's a malignant narcissist.
I think he is a sociopath. People are just numbers to him.
Very rarely do you get a true sociopath and a psychopath, and that's exactly what he is.
And after an exhaustive investigation into the murder of Randolph's 6th wife, Sharon, police get the green light to move in and arrest the so-called Black Widower.
He's at his mother's house.
But it doesn't appear Randolph is about to go quietly.
He has some object in his hand. The officers don't know if it's a gun. They continually demand that he show his hand and what's in his hand. He doesn't do it, and they end up tasing him.
Only to learn that object in his hand was a glove.
And then he's taken into custody.
But it is an incredible 9 years before Randolph makes his first trial appearance. His looks and demeanor shocking those in the courthouse, including Eric Tarantino, a man he'd allegedly tried to hire to kill second wife Becky.
The man that sits before you today isn't the man that I dealt with 30 years ago.
Randolph doesn't even look like the same man he was at the time of Sharon's death. At age 62, overweight, pale, and with his long white hair tied in pigtails, he is barely recognizable. And some even mistake him for a woman as he steps forward to profess his innocence.
I didn't kill anybody.
Our news partner in Las Vegas, KSNV, reports the judge herself is said to be outraged by Randolph's appearance.
We are told the judge in the case ordered him to cut his hair.
Nor does Randolph make a good first impression when he calls her incompetent.
When I talk to the other attorneys, they say, all you're gonna do is piss her off. You're gonna make her look stupid, make her look silly, whatever. And then she's just gonna hold it against you. Well, you're not supposed to hold anything against me because you're fair, you're a good judge.
He also accuses his public defender of malpractice and the prosecutor of being corrupt in long, rambling statements that don't seem to make any sense.
Those witness statements.
Now Randolph's life is on the line, facing the death penalty if he's found guilty of arranging the murder of wife Sharon. Then executing Michael Miller, the hitman he's accused of hiring to shoot her to death in their Las Vegas home. Cops say Randolph killed Miller to keep him from coming back to testify against him like another hired hitman, Eric Tarantino, did.
What was his exact defense? Was he sticking to the heroic husband?
Sure. His defense, it had to be in some sense because his, what we call the walkthrough video.
Boom, boom, boom.
That walkthrough video is this dramatic reenactment of the crime Randolph did for police cameras.
I thought I just seen like a shadow.
Saying he fearlessly chased down Michael Miller and shot him dead in self-defense after Miller had murdered Sharon.
I just kept right on going. Boom, boom, boom.
He's literally tied to that version of events. His lawyers would have had a very difficult time to shift off of that. So his defense was he's the hero, not a killer.
And his attorney claims Randolph was arrested and charged on purely circumstantial evidence.
And the truth is that Thomas Randolph didn't do anything that would merit him being charged with killing his wife.
Tom Randolph looks like a new man when he returns to court to answer first-degree murder charges that could send him to the death chamber. Gone is the long pigtailed hair that had some mistaking him for a woman when he made his first court appearance. Now Randolph looks all business as his own life hangs in the balance.
Boom, boom, boom!
With this police crime scene video once again coming back to haunt him.
And I actually got close. Boom, boom!
Prosecutors used Randolph's own words, contradicted by a mass of forensic evidence, to blow holes in his story.
And I dialed 911 and the phone didn't work.
Exposing all his incriminating bleeps, bloopers, and blunders.
I tried 911 again, and it was busy.
Our news partner in Las Vegas, KSNV, is there as the jury hears damning testimony from Randolph's surviving third wife, Gaina. Police say he tried to put a hit on her, too.
In your opinion, do you think the defendant was trying to kill him?
Yes.
And a star witness, Eric Tarantino, tells the jury how Randolph vainly attempted to hire him to murder second wife, Becky.
When they get to learn about everybody, you can't imagine the shock on their faces when they found out about Kathy Randolph, about Gaina, about Francis. Their minds were blown. They were angry.
So were Sharon's friends and family members in the courtroom, some of whom remember warning her to beware of Randolph before she even married him.
I said, I just have terrible vibes about him.
I got a very, very strong feeling. I can't explain it. He just was, I didn't like him.
Alice Wolf tells the court she confronted Randolph after Sharon's murder.
I said, Tommy, what did you do to her? And he said, I didn't do anything. He did it.
And Sharon's daughter, Colleen, testifies she faced him down too.
I said, what did you do to my mother?
Why was that your first reaction?
I just knew. I knew they fought all the time and there were guns in the house.
Colleen supports the prosecution's contention that Randolph killed Sharon to collect $360,000 in life insurance.
It was just a few months into the relationship and he wanted to get life insurance policies and pick out his and hers matching urns.
Urns?
Urns.
Like what you put
ashes in the cremation.
Prosecutors allege Randolph had killed previous wives for the same reason.
I want Tom to have everything.
Chief Deputy DA Jacqueline Bluth reads the jury the will left by wife number 4, Frances, whom prosecutors say was also murdered for insurance money.
I have always wanted everything to go to Tom because he will take care of everything for me and Rachel like he always does.
And at last, it was time for the jury to decide whether Randolph was the hero or villain in Sharon's murder.
We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant, Thomas William Randolph, as follows.
The verdict in Sharon's killing.
Guilty of conspiracy to commit murder.
And in the killing of her hired assassin, Michael Miller.
Guilty of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon.
Tom Randolph is stone-faced, showing no emotion, as 30 years of deadly deeds finally catch up with him.
If we would not have convicted him, he would be on wife 7 or 8 by now.
But now the jury must also decide if Randolph would have to pay for Sharon's life and any others he took with his own life. Before they deliver a verdict, Thomas Randolph's heartbroken mother takes the stand in a plea for mercy.
This is where I should be as a mother today, to support my son.
That this jury is going to have to make a decision as to whether he spends the rest of his life in prison or if he's executed.
That I know. And I would not want to be in either of your shoes.
And Sharon's daughter, Colleen, tells the jury what Randolph took away from her.
I was 5 months pregnant when Randolph killed my mom. And now my daughter, Katie, who is almost 9, has never gotten the chance to meet her dad.
Finally, the jury makes its decision, and Tom Randolph is sentenced to death.
I can't think of anybody that has deserved his role on death row than Thomas Randolph.
And if the death penalty is for anybody, it's for Thomas Randolph.